I think we're safe to kickstart the webinar.
Brilliant. Thanks,
Yeah,
Nuno.
no worries. So I'm just going to quickly introduce myself as well and just kind of get the ball rolling here. So my name's Nuno. I work with the Dyslexia Association of London. I am the operations manager. I've been working in this role for the past year and a half, and I just kind of oversee the charity operations. I help coordinate these webinars and the resources that you can find on our website, and sort of answering all questions that you might have through our emails as well. And I just kind of help wherever I can. And yeah, and today I'm going to be your host with our speaker, which is Donna, who I've had the pleasure to meet just now. And Donna is a head of training and assessment at Succeed with Dyslexia, and she will be talking to us today about the importance of belonging at work with dyslexia and neurodiversity and everything that comes with it, and how to make the best out of a neurodiverse team. So I'll pass it on to you, Donna, now, and you can take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Nuno. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for giving up your time to listen. Um, as Nuno says, my name's Donna, and I'm here at Succeed with Dyslexia. We do lots of things here at Succeed, one of which is to work with organisations like the local associations that, of course, Nuno is a part of. And, as I chat through today, maybe you'll get a sense of the work that we do here and what I do here. I've been in this community for around 20 years now. I worked for 17 years at the British Dyslexia Association. I started my professional life as a nursery nurse and as a primary school teacher, but probably for the last 10 years, I've worked with adults and workplaces, and I absolutely love it. It's really my passion. And that's why, I'm very lucky that I work here at Succeed, because I spend a lot of my time doing that. It is a special time at the moment. It's Dyslexia Awareness Time. That's why it's a perfect time to look at ideas about belonging and so on, especially when we're thinking about the world of work. And I'll explain more as we go through this afternoon. But a lot of people are saying, well, it's not just about October and having a special time around dyslexia and neurodiversity. It should be a special time all the time. And yes, it should. And I know the Association of London will do that work. And so that's why it's great to link with our friends in these ways. So, what we're going to have a look at today, everyone, is we're going to go back to basics, if that's okay. Because what we hope is that this session is an absolute, complete, perfect package. If you are newer to the ideas around neurodiversity with our adults and in the workplace, it's good to start off with an overview of that, and also then to have a little think about what constitutes neurodiverse good practice as well around adults in the workplace. And then that will lead us very nicely into this idea about belonging at work. And this was a sentiment that certainly with my work, I started to hear this word belonging a lot and the importance of that. And actually, the more that we start to think about it, it's a really useful topic. It's a really useful kind of theme to work around as we figure out how we get the best out of ourselves and others within the world of work as well. So I'm so appreciative that you guys are listening to this. I hope you find it really useful. So as I said though, let's really get back to basics about what we are looking at here around neurodiversity. And, there's lots of conversations at the moment around neurodiversity. Yes, because it's October, but also bigger than that. It's just generally within our society these days. This is a really exciting time to work within this community, because very quickly now, at pace, there's lots of changes happening. That is exciting. But what it can also mean is that for people like me and Nuno and others, we have to keep up to date because things are changing so very quickly. And that's why, what I'm going to share with you today, if we meet again a year from now, it might be slightly different because things are moving so quickly. One of which is the word neurodivergent, believe it or not. So you might see the word neurodiverse on some of my slides. Very quickly now, we're also starting to use the word neurodivergent when we are talking about individuals. And again, this is a very quick change. So somebody had said to me earlier in the week, and my goodness, I've been around so many organisations this week, and I will continue to do so all month. Here at Succeed with Dyslexia, we celebrate awareness time all through October. But a lot of people have been saying to me, hey, you've got neurodiverse on your slide. Shouldn't that be neurodivergent? And that shows you how quickly we're changing. So yes, you might see neurodiverse. I'm also going to use the word neurodivergent. We're kind of using both at the moment, and then we'll see how it pans out. But it's just very indicative of the changes that we're seeing around even our language as we talk about these differences. But this is a pretty reliable first place that we start really when we look around neurodiversity. That being said, I've seen for a little while now other versions of a neurodiversity diagram like this one that has issues like menopause, epilepsy, mental health issues on a diagram like this one. The sentiment of neurodiversity is that nobody gets left behind. So if you associate neurodiversity and you wish to include mental health issues or the menopause, whatever it might be, please do. What we share with you now here from our Thinking at Succeed is a pretty good place to start, but it's not an exhaustive list by any means. But we have to start somewhere, don't we? So this is kind of what we perceive to be the neurodivergent differences currently. Of course, we have dyslexia here, and I'm just very quickly going to talk about that this afternoon. We also have dysgraphia. Now, this is an interesting one. For some people, they see dysgraphia very much as a standalone difference, and a difference that's often been forgotten about and ignored over the years, unfortunately. It's often been overlooked because it looks sometimes a lot like some of the traits of dyslexia around handwriting, around letter formation, and so on, the sounds that our letters make, which for some folks, that's part of their challenges around dyslexia. I also hear some other experts who will say to me, Donna, dysgraphia doesn't exist. It's not a separate difference in that way. So it's a really interesting conversation. What I know from the lived experiences, I've got a lot of people telling me they have dysgraphia. And it wasn't that long ago, everyone, that we used to say that dyslexia didn't exist, wasn't it? Because some of these differences are invisible. We do have experts who will tell us with this great authority, no, there's no such thing as ADHD or whatever it might be. And now, of course, we know that. So with dysgraphia, I proceed with caution when experts tell me it doesn't exist because I've heard this conversation before around other differences. I choose to believe that it is a standalone difference. And, I know that resonates with our community for people who are living with dysgraphia. So that will be an interesting conversation to see. So that's why it's here. And I hope for some of you it resonates with you that it is here. But again, it's really interesting. We still have these debates around some of the differences. Of course, we have ADHD here, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And my goodness, we're hearing so much about that these days, aren't we? Somebody said to me the other day, there's an epidemic about ADHD, and it's the same pattern around autism as well. It doesn't mean suddenly more of us have developed ADHD or autism. It means more of us are speaking up about the fact that we have these differences and we want to go forward and get an identification for a variety of reasons. One of which is to really get to know ourselves. It's about thinking, I really want to know whether I have ADHD or not, because it's another piece in the jigsaw of who I am. It's important that I know whether I have that difference or not. It's part of my human right to know that about myself and my well-being and so on. So yes, there's lots of debate around ADHD and lots of people speaking up about their difference in that way. I guess what I want to share in a quick session like this one is it's important we get educated about what ADHD is. There's so many stereotypes and misunderstandings around ADHD that, it's important we listen to folks who are living with that difference, that lived experience, but also it's about getting educated as well and reading around these issues. And I'm sure the association, have lots of information around. We also are happy to share as well, because we know it's a difference that our community will live with alongside a difference like dyslexia as well. We also have developmental language disorder here, and you will see on diagrams like this, issues around communication. For some of you may have already realised that the word disorder creeps up a lot as well, doesn't it? We've got ADHD, that's got disorder in it. We've got developmental language disorder. We have obsessive compulsive disorder. And that's a word as well, and this is a sign of the times that we're in. That's a word that a lot of our communities have been very upset by now and offended, because it's a very negative word, isn't it? It sounds like there's something wrong with us, that we're broken in some way. And again, a lot of people who are living with ADHD will say to me, I don't like the word disorder, or my kids have ADHD. I don't think they do have a disorder. They are perfect. They don't have a disorder. I don't like that word. Now, when we start to hear people talk like this, I think, in my opinion, it's only a matter of time before we start to see at diagnostic level that maybe that disorder word will start to disappear, and maybe it will be replaced by difference, which is a much more inclusive, positive word. So we shall see. But it's a really interesting sign of the times that we are in, that people are talking in these ways. When I first started around this community, we never used to realize that disorder was a horrible word. For some reason, we just didn't used to think in that way. Now more than ever, we're very sensitive around the language that we use, and quite rightly so, really, because we know that words matter. So here we have developmental language disorder. I think we can probably all guess how that's going to impact on us adults, isn't it? It's about verbalizing, getting our ideas out and expressing ourselves clearly. I guess that's one part of DLD. The other part that's often forgotten about is the listening side of communication. It's equally as important, and we talk a lot about auditory processing. And so again, we know that listening is an equal important part of how we communicate, and it's often a forgotten part. So we need to make sure that we're aware of that, and that we're communicating with people in a way that's very inclusive around, somebody who might struggle with auditory processing. And for sure, that can be an overlap trait of dyslexia. A lot of these differences overlap and interplay with each other. It may surprise some of you to see that Tourette's syndrome is here as well. And if we look a little bit further up, OCD is too, obsessive compulsive disorder. There's that word again, disorder. It may surprise some of you because these are kind of newer to the neurodivergent family, if you like. They're not new differences, but newer in terms of our acceptance that they are neurodivergent differences. And I was so pleased to see them in the family, if you like, because I was very aware for many years, people have spoke to me saying, I have dyslexia, I have Tourette's syndrome, and my workplace supports me around my dyslexia, but completely doesn't speak to me about my Tourette's. And that's the other part of me. And actually, I need support all around the differences, all the differences that I have. Now that Tourette's is recognised as a neurodivergent difference, I think organisations feel more comfortable to speak about it in that way and figure out what's a good support strategy they can put into place for individuals. Again, there's a lot of stereotypes and misunderstandings around Tourette's, and similarly with OCD as well. It's really important we get educated and we listen to individuals who are living with these differences and reach out to the organisations who specialise around these differences to make sure that we're getting it right. Interestingly, as we're recording this session, there's just been a new documentary on Netflix with David Beckham, some of you may have seen, and he talks a lot, and he has done over the years, around his OCD. For that reason, OCD is in the media again recently, because David Beckham's talking a lot about it again. And it helps, doesn't it, when somebody like him speaks up about a difference like OCD, he's neurodivergent in those ways. It makes the conversation maybe a little bit easier to raise for some of us as well. Great when David Beckham or other celebrities speak out, but even more powerful when we speak out in our jobs and so on, because it really brings down barriers for others who maybe aren't there yet to be confident enough to speak in those ways about OCD, dyslexia, ADHD, whatever it might be. We have autism here. And the concept of neurodiversity was created within the autistic community by a lady called Judy Singer. And it doesn't surprise me that the autistic community created this idea really, because they are thought leaders a lot of the time. That's one of their gifts and talents around having autism. They often, disrupt the narrative in the best sense of the word and move on conversations in those ways. And again, a lot like some of the other differences, lots of stereotypes around what we think it means to have autism. Let's speak to the community. Let's link with the experts. Let's get educated about what that is. Similar pattern again with dyspraxia. We've got brackets here, DCD, developmental coordination disorder. There's that word again. In the UK, we mostly refer to dyspraxia as dyspraxia, but it kind of goes by its two titles really, and they obviously, flow as people want to use either or. Again, we associate dyspraxia with physical development, gross motor skills, fine motor skills, but it's bigger than that. And again, if we're not careful, these are the misunderstandings that we can have around a difference like dyspraxia, only associating it with certain parts of its profile. We know that dyspraxia can impact on organizational skills, processing, verbal language as well, even for some of our individuals. So again, it's important to get educated about that. OCD, as I said, is here. And then we've got dyscalculia right that's at the top. And that's not a new difference by any means. But I think it's one that a lot of us don't really understand a lot about. Yes, it's associated with numbers and maths and so on, but it's beyond somebody who just doesn't like maths very much. It's somebody who's got a profound lack of number sense and an intuition around number. And that's actually very disabling in the society that we all live and work within, because number is everywhere, isn't it? Nono was sharing about sending out the Zoom link on different times and so on. Numbers everywhere in terms of showing up on a Zoom at the right time, through to budgeting, through to lots of different day jobs where number creeps in with data and so on. Even if we do jobs that aren't classically associated with numbers, they creep in, don't they, in lots of different ways, from, being on a Zoom call at a certain time. Time is number. And so what we find with our dyscalculia community is that this is very disabling challenges to have, because numbers everywhere. And what the dyscalculia community often say is, in terms of our understanding currently around what dyscalculia is and how it impacts on us, dyscalculia is probably around 20 years behind where dyslexia is now. So they are on catch up in terms of trying to raise awareness and making sure that we all understand that dyscalculia is not just about somebody who doesn't like maths very much, or somebody like me who just about struggled to get a GCSE in maths. It's more profound than that, and it's way more disabling than that as well. So again, it's really important that we understand that, because for sure we can have dyscalculia overlapping into dyslexia, ADHD, or whatever our particular profiles may be. So that's kind of where we're at currently around when we're talking about neurodiversity. What are we talking about? I think just for a few minutes, it's worthwhile just having a quick look at dyslexia as well. And some of you might say, well, why are you looking at dyslexia? Why not ADHD? Why not autism? And it's a great question. I wish we had time to look at all the differences. We're looking at dyslexia because happily, if we get it right for those with dyslexia, especially when we're thinking about how we work with individuals, most of the time we're getting it right and we're being inclusive for our neurodivergent colleagues who speak of other differences as well. But also, the statistics show us that dyslexia is actually still the most common neurodivergent difference. So it's important that we just have a quick, look at what we're talking around when we're looking at dyslexia. That being said, if you want to find out about some of the other differences, please do reach out, and here at Succeed, we will share with you the resources, the information that we've got to hand around ADHD, autism, or whatever it might be. But let's have a little look at what we're looking at here. We still use the Sir Jim Rose definition of dyslexia here in the UK. It's getting a little bit old now. It comes from 2009. And beyond it being a great piece of work, the language around it now is dated. As we see here, Sir Jim talks about dyslexia being a learning difficulty. We talk about learning differences now, don't we? So I think the newer definition that we know is coming through soon will probably have a change in language around that. Beyond that, this is still a great piece of work, actually. That's why we still use it here in the UK. And it was very revolutionary, really, when it first came through in 2009. I remember, we all got very excited when we started to read the Rose Review. It had a massive impact on our education, practice, and so on. It was a game changer in that way. And Sir Jim was a brilliant man as well, a real hero in our community. But what he shared here was around dyslexia impacting on literacy. And I think for most of us, that's our understanding about dyslexia, isn't it? I think we have to go cautiously with that, though. And certainly with my work with adults, we're going to see the whole spectrum around how dyslexia interplays with literacy. We're going to have some folks who will say to us, yes, I've had literacy challenges since a very young child. I've still got exactly the same challenges now, despite being a very professional adult. It's exactly the same, it's never changed. Or we're going to have people say to us, I had it in my childhood, I've learnt lots of strategies, I've got lots of tech in place, and now it's not really present anymore. Maybe it rears its head if I get tired or stressed out. And then we're going to have people who'll say, I have never had literacy challenges. That is not where my dyslexia impacts on me. And we need to be agile enough in our understanding to accommodate all those different voices from all our communities. And when I work with organisations, it's this message I'm giving to them, because there's lots of stereotypes and misunderstandings about dyslexia, that if you don't have literacy challenges anymore, your dyslexia is either gone away, or you've maybe never had dyslexia in the first place. These are some of the myths that we still see around dyslexia. And every now and again, I get told by a professional, they'll reach out to me and say, I went to my manager and said, hey, I think I've got dyslexia. And they said to me, no, you don't. Your emails are perfect. You read okay. You give presentations and they're brilliant. You don't have dyslexia, because they are using literacy as the benchmark to decide whether dyslexia is present or not. And that is the wrong response. So it's really important that we keep fighting those stereotypes, because a lot of people suffer from being told that information, quite wrongly so. Okay, that's why at the time I was so pleased to see that Sir Jim was also talking about memory and processing, because dyslexia is bigger than literacy, and it's important that we accept that. And certainly in my role, part of what I do is I'm a workplace needs assessor. I also coach individuals within the world of work. It's these issues that sit underneath the executive functioning umbrella that never kind of go away, that when I work with professionals, it will be around these issues that we're trying to figure out, okay, what's going to work for you? Yes, technology can help, but sometimes when we're looking at memory and processing, we still don't have a lot of tech around that can help with that. It's got to be about changing the ways that we work as well within our organisations. So really interesting journeys that we take individuals on. And of course, memory and processing can be a theme through into the other differences as well. So Jim also shared that dyslexia is totally independent of somebody's intellectual ability. And we understand that now, don't we? As we get to understand these differences more, we know that the differences don't interplay with someone's intellectual ability, and are best thought of as a continuum as well. And again, I think that's an idea that's really come into its own as the years have gone by. As we think more and more about the other differences, people are going to be in slightly different places on that continuum. And as I said to you, we are doing this very quick deep dive into dyslexia, and people might say, well, why? Why dyslexia? This is part of the reason, because the statistics show us that it's the highest incidence disability, with we guesstimate about 1 in 10 of us being neurodivergent in this way. Okay, so it's not just the highest incidence neurodiversity, but disability, full stop. And a lot of people are not aware of that and are very surprised actually as I go around delivering training and so on to think, oh, hang on a minute, dyslexia is a disability, really? I see you've got the Equality Act logo there. There's still so much ignorance about dyslexia being recognised in that way. And while we've still got this happening, this is why we can still have our community feeling like they are discriminated against and they are disenfranchised as well. So again, it's really important that we are aware of that. We guesstimate that it's about 1 in 5 of us then who are neurodivergent. So if we look at the differences more broadly, that's 1 in 5. And I read something the other day on social media by someone who's a very eminent expert who'd said it was 1 in 2 of us who are neurodivergent. Now, time will tell, won't it, in terms of the statistics as we play catch up with more and more people identified, we should then more realistically and more accurate be able to guess what these statistics are. Because I've got a real feeling that yes, this is very conservative. I've worked with many years with police forces, NHS, and so on, and they guesstimate that within their populations, their professional colleagues, it's 25% of their individuals will have dyslexia. So that's a quarter of their workforce, and that's why these issues are so hugely important now. So again, thanks so much for your time in a session like this. Some really interesting data that's starting to be shared. If we're thinking about statistics, is we guesstimate by the year 2030, which isn't actually that long away now, it's 7 years away, 57% of our workforce will be Gen Z. So these are our younger individuals. As individuals like me, who's in Gen X, start to pull away and retire and so on from the world of work. Now, other statistics say that over 50% of Gen Z identify as being neurodivergent. So we will be getting to the point in the not too distant future that over half of our workforce will be Gen Z, and over half of Gen Z identifies being neurodivergent. So that tells us that within our organisations, we need to future-proof how we approach neurodiversity because we've got a lot of new professionals coming our way who will expect support, they will expect a positive welcome into their organisations for neurodivergent individuals. And for those of you who know Gen Z, and they are a brilliant generation, I'm a huge admirer of them. My children are Gen Z. They want organisations to align with their values. That is the word that they often talk about. We want alignment with who we are. They are a very passionate generation in that way. So very interesting and exciting times ahead. This week I worked with the Department of Business and Trade, and when they are looking to future-proof their organisation because they're very aware of the changing of demographic as the generations replenish and new younger individuals come through, they are passionate about getting it right around neurodiversity. So these are good times to think about these issues because of the changes in the not too distant future. But for those of us currently right now in the world of work, it's really important we get it right now as well, isn't it? Because we want to support everybody. We don't want anyone to feel left behind. That's why it was so exciting to see LinkedIn, acknowledge dyslexic thinking as a gift, a talent that you can tick and add on to your profile. Beyond it being very exciting and a nice thing to do, to my mind, it also pushed forward the conversation and changed the narrative around the idea that we only associate dyslexia with challenges and barriers. Because here was LinkedIn saying, hey, there's something called dyslexic thinking, and it's a good thing, it's an exciting thing, it's a skill that we know some people have. As long as we start to talk about that, that means that then we have to acknowledge that there's gifts and talents around having dyslexia. And although for somebody like me who's been in this community for a long time, I always kind of knew that. For people who maybe don't know a lot about dyslexia, that's a game changer in terms of how you're going to think. Where people thinking, hang on a minute, people with dyslexia are actually good at things because they've got dyslexia. For a lot of folks, that's a new idea because they only associate it with challenges. And it's a similar pattern with the other neurodivergent differences as well. Something else that's a game changer is thinking about the other identities that we all have around our neurodivergent differences too. And the quick way, the shorthand way that we talk about that is this idea of intersectionality, isn't it? And we all have different identities that all come together to make us the fantastically unique people that we are. We know now more than ever that those identities have interplayed over the years for individuals' journeys around their neurodiversity. And we know that some of those identities interplay more than others. One of those identities is gender, one is age, and one is our race and ethnicity as well. Unfortunately, we've realised as the years have gone by that, for example, females, because of the very nature that they are female, have been under-identified around their neurodiverse differences. And it's a similar pattern to older individuals. So we were talking about Gen Z, but for Gen X, who is older individuals like me, we are probably less likely to have been identified because of the time that we went to school. We also know that people of colour as well are less likely to have been identified as well. And these are all reasons around discrimination, unfortunately, and people being invisible for a variety of their intersectional identities. And I'm sure that a lot of you know that it's Black History Month at the moment. So October is a special time as well for that community too. The theme this year of Black History Month is Saluting Sisters, which is a fantastic theme. I hope you agree. And it's a good time then, as we're thinking about neurodiversity, to think about the journey that our people of colour, our Black community have been on around their ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and so on. And then we have another layer to that, because of course, our women of colour, because the very nature of being female means that they have also been discriminated against too, and less likely to have been identified. So somebody like Jeanette Morgan here is very eloquent, way more eloquent than me, to speak about this because this is her lived experience. She is a Black female of Nigerian background, and she wrote a poem about her life experiences around being neurodivergent. And she says, when so many things can hold you back for nothing more than being Black, who would want another label that says that you are not able? And that summarizes it very easily for us very quickly in a session like this as we start to think about all these different layers around the neurodivergent journey. For somebody like Jeanette, yes, it can be a fear of having another label for society, unfortunately, to use against you and discriminate against you as well. That coupled with the fact that society, unfortunately, has been very poor at identifying people of colour means that we have a bit of a double whammy, isn't it? Because we've got society not identifying people of colour, and then we've also got that community themselves being too scared to speak up because they know that they're going to be discriminated against. And this is where, now that we understand this, it's time to bring those barriers down. So we are well on our way around these journeys of making sure that no more we leave anybody behind around their neurodiversity. But we are not there yet. We have to push on because there's still lots of work and discussion and battles that need to occur as well. But we are passionate about that here at Succeed with Dyslexia, and I'm sure the association is as well, because it's all about doing right by our communities in those ways. I think something to get really excited about, as I said, when LinkedIn acknowledged dyslexic thinking, is to think about the strengths and talents around dyslexia and the other differences as well. Now, this is not an exhaustive list by any means, and if you associate your neurodiversity with something completely different that's not on that list, brilliant. It's not about us creating rigid lists and people think, well, hang on a minute, I'm really good at something else and it's not on that list. Does that mean that's not part of me? No, it really doesn't. It is part of you. And it's great if people think in those ways. but we have to start somewhere. So this is a pretty good list, really, I think, which captures most of the neurodivergent strengths and talents. We will have some people who will say they're good at each and every one of these things. Some people will say, yeah, I'm good at one or two or whatever. I'm just starting to think about myself in these ways. But it's a great way to reframe the conversations around neurodiversity. We have here somebody who's very determined, somebody who is a disruptor. And again, it's not necessarily that's a negative thing, I think sometimes, certainly for older people. And I've worked with many professionals who'll say, we don't like the sound of a disruptor. That sounds like it's someone who's going to cause troubles to us. We don't like that here. It doesn't mean that. It means somebody is going to disrupt in the best sense of the word. Because actually, in reality, if you think about any progress we make, whether it's in our small organizations or bigger organizations, or when we change the way that we think, there is an element of disruption there. There has to be. The narrative is disrupted, and then we start to change. Change often comes from an element of disruption. What we are saying here is that there's naturally a group of people who are very good at thinking in those ways, are natural disruptors of those narratives, which is brilliant. That's how we make progress, isn't it? We've also got a group of people who are potentially really good at solving problems in unusual ways and are very creative as well. And this is why we have organisations like GCHQ, which are, of course, our security services here in the UK, so MI5, MI6 and so on, really welcome applications from neurodivergent individuals because of these gifts and talents, because they know that the neurodivergent community often are really good at cracking codes, seeing patterns and so on, as they protect us here in the UK and our enemies are trying to communicate in those coded ways and so on. They know that neurodivergent individuals are great at spotting those codes and cracking them and so on. And actually they know that human beings, neurodivergent ones, are much better at AI, artificial intelligence, at doing that. And that's where we also have an element of the discussion at the moment about, the modern working world. Lots of discussions about AI, isn't there? And lots of fear around, is AI going to take our jobs? What we tend to find, however, is that neurodivergent individuals are a great fit for 21st century working and beyond, because AI cannot do a lot of the things that neurodivergent individuals can offer us, including creativity as well. And there's been quite a funny video recently, I don't know if some of you saw it, where they'd asked AI to recreate the Mona Lisa. Now, the Mona Lisa was obviously painted by Leonardo da Vinci. He was neurodivergent himself. Please do take a look at what AI produced. It is not the Mona Lisa, and that's where we start to see there is flaws in AI. AI cannot replicate what human beings can do, and certainly not the neurodivergent community. AI is a great tool, isn't it? But it's not a replacer of human beings. And please do check out that video. It's really funny if you get to see what AI had produced as the Mona Lisa. Um, the balance, what we need to create, everyone, is, of course, supporting potential challenges, and here's some of them here. And then we hopefully encourage people to get really, inspired and fly within our organisations around those great gifts and talents that we've just been looking at. Because we'd be very naive if we just thought about gifts and talents. And I know some people like to talk about superpowers as well. It's about a balance. And certainly that's my role. In my role here at Succeed, I work with organisations to figure out what they can put in place, what they've got on offer and so on. Here are some of the challenges. Yes, we know literacy and number can be there, but again, it's about being agile enough to be able to respond in whatever way we need to individuals who are talking about those challenges being there in lesser or greater degrees. We also have sensory sensitivity. And this is not a new challenge, but it's one that maybe some of you may be more aware of. There's a lot on social media, people talking about that now, the noise levels in their offices and so on, lighting, colour. We also hear people talk about smells, temperatures in rooms and so on. So it's all the ways that we interpret information around our senses. More folks talking about that more than ever, which is great because it raises awareness around these things. And then, as I said a little earlier when we were looking at Sir Jim's definition, we've got the executive functioning challenges here as well. Organisation, memory, processing. These are often the thread that runs through all the neurodivergent differences. And it's important that organisations figure out, okay, what have we got in place here for individuals who may be saying that they've got short-term and working memory challenges? What have we got in place for people who might struggle with organisational challenges? It's, as I say, technology is brilliant, but sometimes it's got to be that people-to-people support as well, changing how we work too. So what is that good practice then, as I say, about changing how we work with folks? This is very quick that I share, and Nuno has the slides. Please do reach out if you'd like a copy of these. We've written them with a view to share with everybody because we put a lot of information here in order to leave you in a good place around these issues. We've got to see a cluster of responses really to neurodiverse good practice. It's got to be the culture, it's got to be our attitude, and then it's some of the more practical things maybe that we do. What adjustments do we have in place? What do we have in terms of technology and so on? What does it say in our policies? Do we have allies here and champions? Do we have a network group? These things are really important. And also equally as important, I've shared with you here my top 5. As I say, I've been in this community for quite a long time now. So I get asked, Donna, what's your top 5 top tips, reasonable adjustments? Time's got to be on there somewhere, figuring out how we give people more time, recording information, we're recording this session. Speech to text software, that's got to be up there somewhere. It's a really popular adjustment that's very effective actually. And then we've got working with people in a different way, in a structured, bite-sized way. And also my particular favourite is the attitude of individuals as well. We've got to work with individuals, listen to them. It might seem like a really obvious thing to say, but as I said to you this week, I've been with many different organisations delivering these conversation starters, and somebody had asked in the chat, I'm just about to onboard a colleague who has dyslexia, a brand new member of our team. Any ideas about how we work with them? And the first thing's got to be talk to them, speak to them about what works for them, what they're good at and so on. And when I started sharing that with the person who'd asked the question, they seemed a little bit surprised. And I thought, wow, you're surprised by that? To me, it seems so obvious. That's the place to start. But we still got people who that's a surprise to them that they would ask those questions of individuals. But why wouldn't you? Because it's about working with someone and going on a journey with them. The reason why we want to go on a journey with folks is because we want people to feel confident enough to speak up, don't we? And it comes back to this idea about you can't be what you can't see. And I remember when I first heard that phrase, I loved it straight away because it's so important that we stand up and be our authentic selves, isn't it? Because that's how we move on these conversations as well, which brings us to, belonging and the importance of that. I think we've all got a sense generally about what belonging means as an idea, but when we start to think of it in the context of neurodiversity and, the world of work, it maybe takes on a different angle and a really interesting way to think about, how we can get the best out of people, how we can encourage people to feel confident enough to speak up. And when I put these slides together, I thought, right, let's go back to basics here. What are we thinking about when we're thinking about belonging in this context? And actually, I hope what I share with you gives you lots to think about because we've got this idea that we want people to feel that their sense of uniqueness is being accepted. And I absolutely love this word, treasured. So it's not just about being accepted. You actually feel treasured within your organisation for who you are. You feel comfortable to be yourself, to share your opinions and so on. You feel accepted. And this final bolded idea here is also really important, not afraid. I'd love to be able to say that now in 2023, nobody's scared anymore to speak up about their neurodiversity. That's not the case. I probably speak to at least one person every single day who will tell me they are frightened in some way to share who they are around their neurodiversity. And while that still happens, that means, my job still continues because I fight to make sure that nobody feels scared in those ways. But I've still got a long way to go because there's still so many people who are frightened. One of the ways that we can stop that fear factor is by focusing on belonging. And happily, whilst I was researching this, I found these 5 pillars of belonging because sometimes we can think, okay, I get it, belonging's really important, but where do we start? What is it? This, I think, is a pretty good list. Welcomed, known, included, supported, and connected. And I think these all come together to give a sense that we belong. If we focus in on belonging, what our organisations are then saying to us is, we're listening to you, you're important to us, we value you, we're acknowledging your experiences, we're trying to be inclusive, and it's an ongoing journey. And my particular favourite one, we get it. And we can't say as simple as that, simple but profound. We get it. We understand you. And if we don't get it yet, take us on a journey and take us to a place where we do get it. And, we want to work with you in order to get it. So it's this sentiment, I think, that it's the very heart of when we are focusing in on belonging, this is what we're sharing. So what I've done now, everybody, is I've looked at the 5 pillars, and in my opinion, I've put together what are the traits and characteristics, the strategies that we need to focus in on in order to encourage that sense of being, for example, welcomed. As I say, you can have these slides. I know Nuno's got them, but also you can drop me an email and I can send them to you because I've put a lot of information here on purpose. I want to share it with you so that you can have a look at it and share it with others as well, because I feel like it's really important. But when we're thinking about how we encourage folks to feel welcome, it's got to be through how we onboard people, how are we recruiting? It's that first stages into our organisation, isn't it? It's the language that we're using as well. It's thinking about, have we got good practice here as a matter of standard for everybody, whether they're sharing that they're neurodivergent or not? Have we really got that people-centred approach? And I think all those traits come together to make somebody like Emma feel like she's welcomed. And this is Emma's lived experience. She says, when my manager shared that she too had ADHD, it made me feel understood. And I thought, yes, you get me. I hope she stays my manager for a long time because her experiences mean that she knows intuitively how to get the best out of me and be a great ally. Because what we also want to make sure for somebody like Emma is that we feel like we know her, and known is one of the other pillars as well, that we are listening to her, we've got a clear path of support for somebody like Emma, maybe we've got allies within our organisation so Emma doesn't feel like she's on her own, and we are really valuing Emma's lived experience in that way. Here's another voice, it's Mia. I look around my organisation and I just don't see anyone else like me. I am a Black neurodiverse woman, totally proud of who I am, but it would be so powerful if there were more colleagues like me around. Sometimes I can feel incredibly isolated and I get tired of always being a lone voice. And I often speak to people like Mia. Mia's been really brave and she's spoken up, and that is brilliant. But what happens sometimes is Mia's the only one, and that can be very scary and isolating and very tiring as well. So that at Dyslexia Awareness Time, for example, the organisation is always asking Mia to give a talk. And Mia becomes a poster person for whatever difference that she's speaking up around. And we don't want that, do we? We don't want it just to be on one person's shoulders. It needs to be a whole team, and we need to have other people around Mia speaking up and speaking out, because we need to make sure that Mia feels included, that her voice matters as does everybody else's, that we've done our best to bring those barriers down, that we are, again, looking at what it means to us to be neurodiverse neurodiverse-friendly, and we've got a standard approach across our organisation in anticipation that we've got neurodivergent individuals, and that's part of the Equality Act. There's an anticipatory duty there. And then we take people on a special journey as well that's bespoke to them. But also, what do our policies say around neurodiversity as well? Stefan's got a very different lived experience to Mia. He's sharing that he was really pleased in work when they had a call out for neurodivergent colleagues to volunteer as champions. It's made such a difference, as I know I have someone I can go to for a chat, and they always bring the neurodivergent perspective to our work. To be honest, it's made a lot of us now more confident to speak up. A total win-win. And that's more like where we want to be, isn't it? That Stefan's sharing here, that he's got lots of people around him, so he feels very supported. And I think supported as one of the pillars here is the one, in some ways, it might be the easiest to understand, because it's the practical side of what we would be put into place to support somebody like Stefan or Mia. What reasonable adjustments have we got in place? You know, are we giving people extra time? Have we got assistive technology? Have we provided training? Is there different ways to work here? So it's not always about the technology. Are we agile enough to work with you in a slightly different way to get the best out of you? And do you feel respected as well? Here's Ravi. He says, before working here, I used to leave a job after every couple of years. I just used to think that was what I did. I realise now it was because the adjustments I had in place in previous jobs weren't a good fit for me. This organisation is totally different. They actually worked with me to discuss what I needed to get the best out of me. My job has changed since COVID. They even checked in with me then too, to make sure what I had in place was working. Brilliant. And you know, that's where we need people to be like Ravi, that we've really done a deep dive with him that's very particular to him to make sure he's got the adjustments in place. What we also don't want, that Ravi shares, is for folks to leave us and jump from job to job. I often work with people like Ravi who will say to me, I don't know why, but through my employment history, I keep leaving jobs after every couple of years. I just think it's me, I get bored. But actually, it's interesting to hear somebody, Ravi, as they look back and say, oh, it wasn't because I'm neurodivergent, I've been jumping around from lots of jobs. It's actually because I didn't have the right support in place for me. And that's where not only this work makes perfect people sense to get the best out of Ravi, it makes perfect business sense as well. Because if we've spent time, effort, and let's face it, money invested into Ravi to onboard him into our organisation, what we don't want is for Ravi to leave us. We want to retain Ravi and keep him within our organisation because he's a great asset to us. We want Ravi to feel that he's connected, that he's supported, and that we do have signposts and information, that his manager understands him, and that hopefully we've got these allies and champions around so Ravi doesn't feel so isolated. And here's Paul talking about a network. He says, having the neurodiversity network has made such a difference. You don't feel so alone and isolated. I know there are others like me here. We keep it real and we value honesty too. Can't begin to tell you the positive impact that has had on me, which also makes sure that we have some laughs along the way too, which helps. And again, it's great to hear Paul speak up about how beneficial a neurodiversity network can be. It doesn't cost anything. It's part of how we can make changes within our organisation to improve the culture. But it's good to read as well. It's not just all, you know, serious conversations that's happening. It's the camaraderie around a neurodiversity network. And as Paul shares, you know, some laughs along the way too, which is really important. This is a question that I've been posing to everybody this week because I don't really know the answer to this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to stop shortly and see if anybody's got any questions or comments to make. Is the opposite of belonging fitting in? And it's an interesting question, isn't it? The more I researched belonging, the more this idea that fitting in started to appear as the opposite of that. And I think the idea of fitting in is always, you know, a lot of us, me included, thinks of it as quite positive. But the more you think about it, the more you think, oh yeah, actually, maybe there's a darker side to fitting in. And here's what Brené Brown thinks about it. She says, fitting in is about assessing a situation and becoming who you need to be to be accepted. Belonging, on the other hand, doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. And this is where it gives us lots to think about, I think, in terms of, does fitting in create, sometimes inadvertently, some of these negative reactions within our neurodivergent community? And this is where we start to think about masking, isn't it? In order to fit in here, am I changing who I am? Am I hiding who I am? Do I then feel scared to show you who I really am? Because I don't feel like you are going to accept me. I feel misunderstood and invisible. I feel like an other. I don't feel part of this team. And that's where we might see the dark side of fitting in, if you like. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because we talk a lot these days about masking and camouflaging, certainly around our neurodivergent community. The theme this year around Dyslexia Awareness Time is uniquely you. And the more we think about that phrase, being your unique self, that's the opposite of masking, isn't it? We want to feel like people feel treasured to be their unique self. The opposite of that is hiding your unique self because you are masking who you are. And so many adults now are talking about masking, taking the mask off finally, to the point where, and I won't read all this out because I've got one eye on the time and I just want to make sure we finish shortly. But this hopefully will give you lots to think about. It may resonate with you. You know, I've had people share with me that they've even changed their tone of voice, fake smiles, fake facial expressions, teaching themselves to make eye contact, even though it's incredibly uncomfortable for them, in this desperate attempt to fit in and mask who they really are. And here's Charlie sharing their lived experience around masking. They say, I never realised that I changed who I was to fit in at work. I guess it's called masking, and it was exhausting for me, not just emotionally, but I actually used to feel physically tired by the end of the day too. Since my identification and the journey that's followed, I'm actually the real me at work now. It's been tough finally getting to this place, but it's so worth it. More and more, I have people reach out to me who are talking about this issue, and maybe the association does as well. It's emotional. The mask doesn't always come off easily. It's scary to take the mask off. People are unexpectedly rocked and rattled and perturbed about taking the mask off, because as horrible maybe as the mask has been, it's been a bit of a security blanket over the years for some of us. And so this is not an issue that we have to think very easily and lightly about. It's very, very profound. And I think the more of our adults who are identified with ADHD and autism, for example, the more we are going to listen to people like Charlie share about how emotional that journey's been for the very nature of taking that mask off and being their authentic selves. What we hope is, if we focus in on belonging as a sentiment, we are supporting people who are taking that mask off and being their true selves. Because what it does is it makes people realise that we cherish them. We are putting their lived experience at the very heart of what we do. It makes what we do real because it makes it authentic. And what we hope is that it reduces levels of stress and anxiety, because we've got people at the very heart of who we want to be and what we're going to do in our organisations. There's a lot of work at the moment as well about psychological safety at work as well. And I think belonging helps to increase our sense of feeling safe within our organisations too. What I want to do then, as I draw this session to a close, is focus in on one more quote, if that's okay with everyone. This is a very positive one. It's from Mohammed. He says, now I'm in my 50s. I finally feel confident to stand up for those of us who have dyslexia. Since I've spoken out, there's been so many colleagues who've approached me to thank me, or who want to stand with me. We now have a bit of an army going on, and it's fantastic. Me speaking up has caused ripples of hope. And, you know, I just want to thank you for listening to this session. I hope this session has caused ripples of hope. I hope that we can add on ripples of hope and join the ripples that the association and Nuno and the team create. I'd said to Nuno before we got started, you know, beyond Succeed standing alone now, we also stand with some other local dyslexia associations to create a network that also, we hope, creates ripples of hope. The network is called Adult Network, Neurodiversity and Dyslexia. And we meet that last Thursday of every month where we're going to listen to an expert and then in a safe environment ask some questions with our experts. It won't be recorded and it's just a safe space that us and the other groups wanted to create in order to help, you know, sustain those ripples of hope. So please do keep in touch with me, including if you'd like to find out more about our adult network. We wanted to create it because we felt like more work needs to be done in this space. And that's why I'm so appreciative of Nuno and the association to give us this time as well to talk to you all about belonging and so on. So I'm going to hand back over to Nuno now. Thank you so much, guys. I hope this has been useful in some way to you all.
Thanks a lot, Donna. That was brilliant. I think there was a lot. I definitely felt the ripples then. So
Brilliant.
that's
Thank you,
worked.
Nuno.
So I'm pretty sure that everyone else has as well, because there was a lot of good stuff that you were talking about and a lot of excellent points. So I'm gonna open the floor now to anyone who might have questions or who might want Donna to answer anything that they wish. I'm conscious that we're already 5 minutes past, but if you're all right to stay for a little bit longer, Donna, then I'm also happy to
Yes,
have
for
people
sure,
stay for a
Nuno.
little bit
A
longer.
million
But
percent. Yeah,
yeah,
let's keep going. Yeah.
if people have to go, like feel free to go. And like we were saying, the recording will be available online, and I'll post the links as well, and you can always access them via our website once we upload them. If you look into the chat, I've posted the links, but I'll post them again just in case. And I'll add the Succeed with Dyslexia links again, so you can check out some of their brilliant work. And I'll put it down here. And yeah, I have to say, Donna, this such a great webinar, especially coming into sort of, we're kind of over halfway of the Dyslexia Awareness Week now, and I think this was really, really good to kind of really bring people into up to speed with a lot of this information, because it's kind of difficult because it's all kind of like spread out there. So that's why we like to have these webinars where we kind of like bring in experts like you, which kind of bring all the information in. And yeah, if people can appreciate that. Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to just linger for a little bit longer. And
Yeah. Thanks, Nuno. You know, that's
yeah,
really kind of you to say, and I know the work you guys do at the association is
yeah,
brilliant.
um,
Sorry, I was just going to say,
yeah,
Nuno, if
sure,
anybody listening wants to invite us into their organisation for a free conversation starter, this is beyond Dyslexia Awareness Time. And Succeed celebrate Dyslexia Awareness Time all through October, so I keep
yeah.
on delivering these talks all month. But if you'd like to invite us in, we're always happy to help to break down barriers. You know, sometimes when you're a colleague on your own in an organisation, you know you're neurodivergent, but maybe you look around, there's
Yeah.
not much out there. Sometimes bringing somebody like me in to give a talk gets people motivated and brings down some barriers. So we're always happy to do that, Succeed. So please do keep in touch if you'd like us to do something like that. So always happy to help in those ways. No, would you like me to look at the chat and see if we've got anything in there? I haven't had a look at
The
it yet.
chat's pretty clear, but I was just reading Sharon's story, who's talking about when he got diagnosed with dyslexia, completing a foundation degree at age 45, and then he went on to do nursing. Sorry, Sharon, she went on to do nursing learning disabilities BA honors degree, and would have gone further with education if she was diagnosed earlier in life. And she says she feels like she masks her dyslexia with humor and a large personality, and she's going through difficulties now to get her son diagnosed with 16, and feels sad that the support is still not in place to help him to go on to further education, as the opportunities aren't the same as when she was younger.
Yeah, it's painful to read that, Sharon,
Yeah,
for our kids, isn't it? We hope there are changes happening, Sharon, but it's not quick enough still. So we still have kids, like your son is, slipping through the net in those ways. The only thing I could say is, I know it sounds like you've had a really tough time there. I can only imagine what you've been through with your son, and obviously for yourself as well. Is that I hope now despite your son's journey around struggling to get an identification, as he actually goes into the workplace and so on, because there's a lot of positivity around, it's a better place to be if you're neurodivergent than maybe it was, a few years ago. So I hope that despite some of the hurdles that you've had around identification, the culture and so on that your son is learning and then ultimately one day be working within is better now. He is Gen Z. So as Gen Z come into the world of work, as I said, we've got these projections now that Gen Z will be the largest part of our workforce in 7 years' time. It's not long to go, is it? That they will make some of the changes as well themselves within organisations because of the cultural shift we'll see as we switch over generations, which happens, it's happened in
definitely.
previous years and so on. So it's interesting. But thank you, Sharon. You're not on your own. If you want to reach out, please do let me know. And Sharon, you might want to join us now and again on the AND network as well. Drop me an email if you'd like to send me to send you a Teams link. It's the last Thursday of every month, 7 p.m. UK time, Sharon. And it's a safe place to come and ask questions and so on. We've got some great experts on there. We record the expert, but we don't record the questions. And we do that so that people can feel free to ask anything, a bit like an open surgery. So please do come along, Sharon, if you want to share thoughts or ask any advice. Always happy to support if we can.
That's great, Donna. Yeah, I will definitely be joining one of those sessions. So the next one we're talking will be on the 27th of this month. Is that correct?
26th. No, 26th.
26.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's about
correct.
dysgraphia this time, guys. So as I say, we have part of it where our expert will talk about dysgraphia. We stop the recording then. So the dysgraphia talk goes on, for example, SWD's YouTube. It's all free, by the way. We stop the recording and then we have about half an hour where we've got experts from the associations. I'm on there. Of course, we'll have the expert speaker and then we can answer anything. It's not just dysgraphia. We just open the floor and see if you've got any questions and so on. As I say, we wanted to do that to create this safe space. So yes, so no, I'll send you the
Yes,
link for the
please.
26th, and then that's the pattern that it will be,
Yeah.
folks. That we won't do one in December. I think we figured out that everybody will be on holiday, but every month, maybe apart from December, we'll go with the last Thursday.
Yeah, I'll be because we'll be sending out the sort of outgoing email with the end of the webinar. So I'll put the if you send me the information about the and meeting, and I can
Yes.
just I'll fit it into the email so that everyone that's coming today has access to the link straight away.
Yeah, no problem, no.
And
Thanks so much. And Sharon had just been asking about my email address. So it's
yeah,
donna@succeedwithdyslexia.org. So that's my
just
email
gonna
address. Yeah,
write that down, and then you can just copy and paste it.
yeah.
And then we have a little a question out from anonymous. So they're just wondering. So they said that they haven't been diagnosed with dyslexia, and they're thinking about job interviews, and they're asking, should they mention it during the interview or after an offer has been given? It's a little, well, it's kind of around the same topic. It's just a different case. So
Yeah, thanks, Nono. And thank you whoever asked that question. It's a really interesting one. What we always say when somebody asks that is that it's a personal choice. Please don't feel pressurized that on an application form you need to disclose that if you don't want to. You also don't need to disclose at interview. either. So there's lots of different routes through. You can choose to, and the organisation, if it's any good, will offer you reasonable adjustments during the interview process. And in some ways, if they don't, or they're pretty ignorant around how to get the best out of you in a job interview, I guess that gives you a message about the organisation that you're about to join, isn't it? So there's all that kind
Yeah,
of, hidden
definitely.
messages that might be coming from the organisation. But if you decide to reveal at a job interview, then please do, expect to get some support. If you don't, maybe drop me an email. I'm always happy to advise that you can advise the organisation. But I also understand, especially in this day and age, people feel very scared to speak up about the differences because they think, oh, I'm not going to get a job interview. I won't be shortlisted if I share that I'm neurodivergent. I wish that wasn't the case, but we have to keep it real. And we know for some organisations, although it is illegal to do that, there is still bad practice out there where they won't shortlist people because they're
Hmm.
talking about difference. So that's your choice. But don't feel that if because you haven't declared it as you apply for a job and because you haven't declared it a job interview, it doesn't mean that then once you're in, if you get the job, it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to talk about it once you are
Exactly.
in your
Yeah,
organisation. You can disclose at any
yeah.
time. So it's important that you understand that, or you don't ever have to disclose. You don't ever have to tell anyone ever. So it's important that you understand, the nuances. And if you haven't disclosed going in, and then let's pretend you're in the organisation for a year and you decide to tell them, you should not receive any detrimental treatment because you've disclosed then. Nobody should be saying to you, hey, you didn't say that at interview and now you're telling us that you've got dyslexia. No, those conversations should not be happening. And so again, it's important that you understand your rights. But in terms about whether to disclose, that's your decision. And I understand that people who do and are very open and proud, but I also understand sometimes when people say, I've decided not on this occasion. It's got to be a personal choice.
100%. And it's worth noting as well that if you do want to get some sort of reasonable adjustments later on, you will obviously have to disclose it.
Yes, thanks, Nuno.
So, so
Yeah,
you that's the other thing. If you choose not to disclose it, but then you feel like you're going to need some support, then you'll have to approach someone.
yes,
And because
yeah,
we have we've had a few people who said that they wish they had someone like sort of like on a kind of like a HR role who they could come to on a sort of like anonymous, not anonymous, but kind of like a one-to-one sort of situation, because they didn't feel comfortable letting everybody know that they had
yes,
a neurodiversity, but they wish that they would have someone within the workplace who would keep things confidential, and who they could get some support through, because it's like we were saying, sometimes people don't feel that open about sharing their neurodiversity as well. But that's a
yeah.
whole, like you said, there's lots of reasons for that.
Yeah, that's right. That's why we argue, guys, that we need a baseline,
Exactly.
good practice for everybody, whether you know or not. That will capture quite a few people if we do that, where people think, well, I know I've got ADHD, but actually I don't need to disclose because everything we do here is quite ADHD friendly. And then if you've got something very specific, or sometimes it happens because you've been put on a performance journey, and suddenly then you think, gosh, maybe I should tell them I'm neurodivergent because they're
Mm.
about to say I'm not
Hmm.
doing my job very well. And one of those reasons is because I'm neurodivergent and, they haven't been working with me in a way that's good for me. And that's when sometimes disclosure occurs as well. If this is something that you are, wrestling with, again, please do reach out to me. To imagine I spend a lot of my time speaking to people about this stuff, and obviously I know the association does as well, but always happy to advise if I can. It's a tricky one, and I can see all sides about why somebody might be scared to disclose. I want us to get to a place where everybody wants to disclose, though, in the future, people feel happy and confident. Hopefully, we'll get there one day.
Yeah, I think we're on the right track here.
I think so, no, no.
So yeah.
Yeah, I hope so.
Right. So we're sort of 20 minutes past time now. So I think we're going to bring this webinar to a close. And again, Donna, thank you so much for coming in today and give us such a beautiful presentation. Yeah, we will be having the recording online and the slides as well. We'll upload everything onto our website. And yeah, there's Donna's email again. Feel free to contact her or contact us as well if you've got any questions as well. We're all here.
Yeah.
Just reach out, because that's the best you can do, is reach out and try to spread the awareness and inform and educate. So thank you very much for coming.